Basically what we're going to go through today is we're going to go through what is behavior, what are the reasons for behavior, and then the question that you're all trying to figure out is what do I do about it? What do I do when I have the problem behaviors? So it's going to be about an hour and a half. Things will go faster or slower, kind of depending upon how activities go, how you guys, what your questions are, kind of how we go through those different things. Obviously, we have a nice small group, so we're able to kind of be very interactive. I should probably tell you who I am. My name is Karen Umstead. I have my master's in special education, my bachelor's in elementary education, and I have my life experience with my younger sister who has autism and behavior issues. So I was just telling Tiffany about some of that growing up. And I've kind of helped with my mother raise my sister and kind of gone through the process, and she's in her 20s now, and so lots of fun with that. And it does get better, I can tell you. And I'm also a board certified behavior analyst and the executive director of Beautiful Minds of Princeton. And we work with families and with schools kind of providing consultation on autism, behavior, social skills, transition training, those types of areas. So given that, if you can give me a little bit of background, I know you guys, are you both elementary school parents? Have a student? What are you? Preschool, okay, both preschool? Okay, all right, so little guys. What ages, so you've preschool, I can pretty much guess the age. What ages?
3 to 5, 3 to 3 old and 5.
Okay, awesome. All right, so you're kind of in that same kind of area. All right, so we'll gear it towards the younger kids. And then yourself?
I'm the director of special education.
Okay.
I'm here to support Tiffany.
Awesome, and so you've got the wide range then of all the kids. And then Tiffany, I know you're working with elementary and you'll soon have a, baby, basically. I can't give you too much on on the 1 month old or baby, infant. But what are you hoping to get out of tonight? Because obviously you've come, you've given us your time. What is it that you're hoping to get?
I'm hoping for one technique or a tactic that will click with my son to get him to be more concerned about obedience and rules and walking the line.
All right, sounds good. Same for you? All right. Yes. You're like chewing you've got the Starburst.
Starburst is really, our son is he has some issues with listening. I guess like a lot of 5-year-olds do, but he has some concerning issues with things like eating.
Okay.
He just won't eat, and he gets tremendous anxiety. He eats like 3 or 4 different things.
Gotcha.
And if we try to give him something different, it's not that he doesn't like it. He gets really upset, and I think that issue is kind of transcends into some other areas. So we're just trying to be as proactive as we can. We've seen specialists and whatnot, and so that's why we're here.
Great. What about you guys?
For me, it's kind of the same thing, just to see if there's a technique. I read a lot of parenting books, and I see all kinds, and then I try some of them, and and with each stage, it seems to change. Like I'll get something under control, and then something will come up again, and I find myself shouting. So.
You're human, but it's good to seek out proactive strategies before it gets to the shouting.
Yeah, no, I'm a yeller. That's why. I need some other technique besides threatening my kids' legs.
That is a good plan. I guarantee you, I will tell you things that do not involve threatening their life or their livelihood or any of that.
You know what I'm saying?
I totally understand.
Not hurting them, but I'm just saying.
Totally understandable. Look, the fact that you're here says something. You said, I want to try to do something different. And that speaks volumes. You should all be giving yourselves, as I said, I was a former teacher, so we always did the, pat on the back kind of a thing. You got to give yourselves credit for doing that, for trying some new things, and for, seeing what else is out there. You're reading lots of parenting books, you're trying to do different stuff, and that's what's important, is to continue to try and find what's effective. We're going to go over, like I said, just the basics of behavior. We're going to go over some ways to increase and decrease behaviors, and then we're going to go over how to teach new behaviors. That being said, there's two things we're going to do before our first activity. The first thing you have to know about target behaviors is that they need to be clearly defined. The reason for that is you need to agree, and you need to agree, did the behavior occur, either the behavior you want to see or the behavior you didn't want to see. Because what I find sometimes will happen is people will say, oh, well, they had a fit. And in fact, I was at a school this morning and they said, well, he has a fit. And I said, well, what does that look like? Describe it like I'm blind. Like, how am I gonna know he's having a fit? And in the student's case, he stomps his feet. So it's, he's stomping his feet, he starts to cry. And I was able to then say, okay, great, now I have something observable. And I have my fancy apps on my phone that I use for behavior tracking. And so I can say, okay, this happened, this didn't happen. This happened for 10 seconds. And you want it to be measurable. So again, like we just said, 2 people have to agree that the behavior is occurring, because otherwise you and your spouse, you and your partner, you and your child's teacher are not going to be able to kind of say, okay, this is happening, this isn't happening, when is it happening, those types of things. Or other family members too. If you take your child to grandma's house and grandma says, well, he was perfect, and you say, are you sure? Did they do this? You want to be able to say, okay, well, this is what I'm looking to change. This is what I'm looking to see happen. So we just kind of went through a couple of these examples, but throwing a temper tantrum, he's aggressive, I'll hear non-compliant, they don't listen. And it can get really, really specific. As behavior analysts, we tend to really get specific, but it could even just be for staying calm, keeping my hands to myself and asking for assistance. If it's a behavior that you're looking to decrease, for example, aggression, for some students, it may be throwing an object towards someone. For some students, just hitting. So you want to make sure that you've kind of clearly defined that so you can agree, okay, this did or did not happen. Now, that being said, we are going to start out and we're going to do an activity. Okay, so what's going to happen is we're going to have one special volunteer, and since you're so nicely already in pairs, I will let you work with the partner at your table. Actually, I have 4 of you, great. So what's going to happen is, and don't everybody fight over it, one is going to be the special volunteer, and you are going to communicate with your partner. But, here's the but, you cannot speak, you cannot write, you cannot do air numbers or letters. I know sign language, so if you try to sign, I will call you out. You will have 5 minutes to get this done. You will have 6 things on this lovely sheet of paper to communicate to your partner. Your partner is going to do the best they can to understand what it is you're trying to communicate and do whatever that is if there's something to do. If there's something to say, if there's something to do. That's pretty much it for the instructions. So I'm going to put one of these. Do not look at it until you know who is the special volunteer. You can join any one of these tables. We're just about to do an activity. You get one, don't you worry.
Thank you.
Okay, so on your marks. Again, here are your things. You can't speak, you can't write, no numbers or letters with fingers, no writing on paper. Oh, special volunteers. You have to start at the top left corner and go across, and then go to the second row and go across. And that is all I'm going to tell you. So
I'm sorry, start at the top and then work your way.
Go left to right, and then go to the next row, left to right. All right? That's all I'm going to tell you for the next 5 minutes. You can start. So you're trying to figure out what it is he's trying to communicate.
He's gonna
He's gonna charade.
He's gonna try to get us to do or say something that is impossible.
Okay.
I'm hungry.
And I will tell you that there are people who have gotten it done in less than 5 minutes, all 6 of those.
Cradle.
Sorry.
Mother cradling.
Single, unwedded mother.
Wow, she's really hard.
He's doing more thinking than acting.
This is really hard. Okay.
He's being non-compliant.
You have to do it. She can't move on until I get the first thing, right?
All right.
I've given my instructions.
Oh, okay.
You are.
What? My.
It's good. Just keep eating Starburst.
Introduction.
Intro.
Introducing. You're
You're
introducing.
introducing.
Yes, introducing. I'm introducing you. You're introducing yourself.
We have a baby.
An introduction.
No, we're off of that one.
That's all I got. You're introducing me to him. We're acquainting each other.
Meeting? Meeting each other, talking to each other.
We're getting
About 3 minutes left. Keep going.
friends.
We're
We want to say
We're
shake
together.
hands.
We're
There
together.
we go.
You are the giver of love.
You greeted?
Moving right along to the next one.
I'm passing. I'm skipping.
He speaks so non-compliant.
It's
Oh,
not me.
there's 6 of them.
Oh.
He's on, I guess, number 2.
I'm on number 2. We can skip.
What was it?
I'll tell you.
You can't skip number 2 too.
Trying to reach the one to run.
Moving right along.
Tear.
Double? Double horn?
Got that part now.
Chipmunk. Oh, who's
Beaver.
that? Beaver, yeah.
No.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, you gave me you want to go to the doctor.
Bugs Bunny.
Squirrel?
Bugs Bunny.
Oh, good.
Oh, I have to write it down. You have a bellyache? Bellyache.
Jumps.
Carrot?
All right, about a minute and a half.
Oh, eating a lot of candy.
Horse.
Plus.
Rabbit course.
Dash. Story number 3. You only got like 45 seconds.
Let's go back to the first
All
one.
right.
No, that's too bad.
You are.
We are.
We are.
Parrot.
Close to.
Jolly,
Quiet.
happy, singing. Happy, singing, jolly.
What am I doing?
Yeah, no words over there.
We're singing. We're a choir. Do you want us to sing? You want me to sing? What do you want me to sing? I'm not singing.
Audition?
Did you want me to hop like a bunny?
No.
Did you want me to shake his hand?
Um,
Do you want me to rock him like a baby?
I'm stumped.
It would be great to have you on video, though, hopping like a bunny.
Jeez.
All right, 30 seconds.
Go
Go
to
to
the
4.
next one. Paper.
Handout. Book.
Assignments.
You want me to write something? You want me to write a smile?
Oh my god.
next one.
That's it.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we got one.
You got one more
Okay.
time. Do the next one.
Well, the easiest one was okay. Oh, this is a good one.
All right. So the first one is you want your group to tell you their mother's maiden name. I am not lying that I have had groups that have gotten all 6 within 5 minutes.
Well, they're good.
How would you, what would be an example?
Well, she actually started to do one of them. You started playing with your ring, trying to take it off and on. Yes, I heard you. She was like, we're married, we're divorced, we're together, and you two were, so that's one of the ways sometimes people have gotten it. I've seen people try to use the whole, baby before baby, that kind of thing. That's why I was half expecting her to start gesturing, towards you. The second one was you want your group to write down the closest holiday greetings. I think you were doing Easter with the chicken, right? Or is that a different one? That was Valentine's Day?
Oh, yeah, okay.
You want your group to sing the alphabet song. That was when he was doing this.
Where was the alphabet?
He didn't get there. You want your group to draw a happy face and a sad face on a sheet of paper. You want your group to sit in a circle and play duck, duck, goose. Your group must understand your stomach hurts because you ate too much candy. And how did you guys get that one? Because you used, and I honestly didn't do that on purpose. I'm trying to, no more candy in the house. So yeah, you use things in your environment, that type of thing. Now, if you were the special volunteer, how did you feel? Frustrated. You, and this is your wife, yes? You know, you're sitting there and she's going, you can stop thinking already, because tell me, what is it? Let's go, you know? You know, and you're just kind of, I'm not really sure. And especially since what my instructions were to that first one, which was hard. Now, did any of you, were any of you successful in getting that first one done? No?
How many people moved on?
All of you did. If nobody got that first one, all of you were, and all of you at some point pretty much were like, you know what, forget it, I'm moving on. Or, you know, I said, oh, you've only got 2 minutes left, and you were like, all right. In fact, you were like, number 4, let's go. We didn't get number 1, 2, or 3. 15 seconds left. Let's get something. And you know, he's probably also, you're frustrated clearly. Like at one point, your fingers, you were tapping, and you were kind of like tap to tap to tap to tap, and it was getting
really helpful when you're trying to think.
Yeah. So you were frustrated as the person trying to communicate. The people who were trying to understand, I think I can probably fairly say you were frustrated. Did you have any other feelings as well?
You feel bad for them.
I felt angry.
Absolutely. You have a variety of emotions, and then the person who's trying to communicate to, I've seen it happen too, where that person gets angry, in particular when there's larger groups that, like, we'll do it with groups of 4 or 5 or 6, and you'll find, you know, people, I mean, I'm not saying people will stomp, but people will be like, oh my God, like, hello, you are so close, why are you not understanding? You know, and they get so worked up. What was the point of this? Behavior is a form of communication. And if you're when you start to get really frustrated and you start to get upset, your brain shuts down. Just like you had that experience here where you weren't able to communicate as clearly and effectively as you wanted to, whether your child has communication issues, whether your child has a developmental disability that impacts communication, or whether it's just your child gets frustrated when you have that behavioral moment. How many times have you had an argument and come up with the world's best comeback 5 minutes later? Because in that moment, you shut down. You forget how to do everything. It's the same thing that happens with behavior. And you have to start thinking of behavior as a form of communication. Because sometimes, well, in my opinion, all the time, they're trying to tell you something. Whether it's, I want attention right now, whether I want something right now, whether I'm trying to escape something, I don't really want to do this. Whether it's, you know, that there's just something else going on. They're trying to communicate something. You have that experience too. We're going to talk about right now with babies. And we look at the behavior, same behavior, but a baby crying might be for different reasons, right? Sometimes a baby cries and it means I'm hungry, I want a bottle, I want something. Sometimes there's a wet diaper, so maybe they want to escape that sensation. Maybe it's a sensory type thing. Wants to be held or rocked, same kind of thing. It's a sensory thing. They're crying, it's the same behavior, but it means something different. Or the last one is, a lot of times the baby just wants somebody to talk to them, give them attention, you know, play with them, those types of things. When we look at behavior, we break it down into why is the behavior occurring, and we look at it based on a function. So when you say to me, and I think you were starting to bring up a good point earlier, he's having issues with eating. Is it because blank, 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 or blank? The behavior may be eating, but it could be escape. It could be that there's a sensory issue going on. It could be a variety of different functions. And the best, if you take nothing else, if you leave here with nothing else, look at behavior by the function, by why it is occurring, by what is happening. And then consider, is it for attention right now? Is it because they're trying to escape something? Is it, again, that sensory type piece? Rocking, for example. I love rocking chairs. And that type of behavior, the reason I like it, it's a sensory thing. I just like that feeling of rocking back and forth. I love spinning too. The OT where I used to work, she had one of those little spinning kind of seats, and it was great. You could go in there and spin around, or tire swings, things like that. These are things to be aware of, because some behaviors you do because you just like the way it feels. How many people like to wear wool? I hate it. I agree with you. Some people like wool because it makes them feel warm. Other people, like me, I find it scratchy. So if you said to me, you know, wear this wool outfit, I'm gonna have some issues, you know, and I may have some behaviors as a result of that. It could be that there's something tangible. The classic, again, is that you're in line at the supermarket and they want that particular, they, you know, say, can I have the Twizzlers? And you say no, and they throw themselves down on the ground, kicking and screaming because they want the Twizzlers. The behavior's happening because they want to get something. The way that we kind of look at it too is also a function being to gain, and it could be adult or peer when we talk about it, so other kids. The tangible, it could be an activity, it could be an event, it could be an object. The sensory piece, it could be that they're trying to gain some sort of visual thing, some sort of auditory, smell, kinesthetic even. Like if you think about it with like smell, think about Bath and Body Works, right? You know, a lot of people go in there and they sniff stuff because they like the way it smells. It could be some of the same things if you have behaviors that might be because they were trying to get a particular smell or those types of things. It could be, again, kind of more things going on within the body, that kind of movement type thing. Could be that they like the way something tastes, or it could be just with the way they like it feels.
What was that?
Proprioceptive, kinesthetic and proprioceptive are both kind of more within the body kind of things. Proprioceptive, I'm not sure if it quite goes with the vestibular, but it's almost kind of like, and anybody else can feel free to jump in on that. It's almost like the way your body is in kind of space and time. You know, so it can be kind of, if you think about it, like, have you ever walked on an uneven surface, or suspension bridges are great for that too, kind of that kind of like, you know, almost disorienting kind of thing. So it's kind of, an OT would really be able to give you an even more finer tuned definition. Again, same thing, it could be they're trying to escape attention. Sometimes they don't want the attention. Same exact things. The sensory stimulation piece with internal stimulation, which is painful and discomforting, this is, again, like, it could be, and I don't know, I'm just going with what you were saying earlier with eating, if there's some sort of thing internally, like students that have had things going on in their GI tract, or they're having issues with that, that could be why there's a particular behavior that might be happening. This is the same thing. This is why we take Advil to escape, well, in my case, the pain of a headache. It's the same reason that we do that. We're trying to avoid this internal stimulation that's painful. How do we figure all this out? $1 million question. We look at what happens before the behavior and what happens after the behavior. And that's what's going to tell you, is it attention? Is it escape? Is it sensory? Is it tangible? Sometimes you can't tell in the moment. And that's where sometimes looking at things over time, kind of thinking like, you know, after the fact, all right, what happened right before that? What happened right after that? How do I kind of know what, you know, was going on? And thinking of it as a pattern, because usually you'll see a pattern over time. If you're targeting, okay, this is the behavior we want to change, this is the behavior we're going to target, we're going to look at this over time and how we can kind of do that. You're going to look at also just what happened after, so you can kind of find out, okay, I was telling Tiffany, my sister loves food. And growing up, I'll admit, when I was babysitting, my sister learned that, oh, I will just throw myself on the ground and cry and scream, and Karen will give me a fruit roll up and I will be happy. Now, I started working in the field and suddenly I was like, no, that's not gonna work. And her behavior started to change over time because she learned that wasn't gonna be effective anymore. But I had to think, okay, wait, if every time she does this, I do that, or most times, it doesn't have to be every time, most times this is what happens as a result, I wonder if this could be it. And sometimes you can even play around with it. Like the observation I was talking about a little bit earlier today, that it was in a gym, and the student started crying and stomping his feet. And I said to the paraprofessional, I said, what would happen if you ignored this? Like, do you think it would stop? Would it get better? You know, and what I was trying to figure out, was it attention? Was the function of the behavior attention? And sometimes, we won't get into that in this particular workshop, and I forgot to say, my email is on the handout, so feel free to email me any questions afterwards, because I could talk for hours on this and you're gonna wanna go home at some point. Your kids will want you, someone. But you can really start to look at, you know, what's going on a regular basis. And if you're not sure, you can even, you know, try 5 times in a row. Okay, this time we're gonna do this and see what happens. If it changes, woohoo, guess what? Sometimes, and like I said, we're not going to get into this, sometimes the behavior will initially get worse and then get better, and that's called extinction, and that's a whole nother amount of time. But just be aware that sometimes it's okay if it gets a little bit worse and then gets better. So we talked about the 3-term contingency. So we're just going to go over these really fast. Function of behavior. This one is Dylan comes into school and sits down. While he goes over the schedule for the day, he begins rocking back and forth and humming. The activity continues as planned. Staff do not intervene, and Dylan continues for another 10 minutes and then stops. Later on that day during lunch, Dylan is sitting by himself and he begins to rock and hum again. The probable function of the behavior is what? Your choices are attention, escape, sensory, or tangible.
Escape?
Okay.
Because he's nervous about something that was going to be occurring that day?
Okay. What do other people think? Attention, escape, sensory, or tangible? I won't yell at you, I promise. You're just, it could be, okay, attention.
You didn't get intervention from the staff, so I'm just trying to do it again to get more attention.
Okay. Any other ideas? I'm going to keep, you should. All right, I won't stare. All right. So in this particular case, there's a couple things. You noted something really good in terms of the fact that the staff didn't intervene, so it could possibly be attention based on that. You were talking about maybe there's some other stuff going on that he's trying to escape. This particular example, though, was looking for sensory. Because of this, he's doing the rocking back and forth and humming. One of the key things that you'll see a lot of times with sensory when we do all sorts of fun analysis is that it'll also happen when they're by themselves. So they don't need anybody else around to be doing that particular behavior.
Feel good? The hum and rock back and forth? Is that what
I'm assuming, yes. In this particular case that he would be doing it, yeah, because he wanted that. I mean, if you think, like I said before, rocking chairs. I love rocking chairs. Now, I have students that will do this while they're just standing. It doesn't look so typical when you're doing that. You put them in a rocking chair, they look completely typical. It's the same sensation. So what we try to do in that case really is usually try to do replacement type behaviors. But in this particular case, a big thing is that if they're doing it by themselves, that's probably a key that it could be sensory because it's not dependent on anything else. It's internal. Mark is playing with the Legos during indoor recess. He and another student both want to use a particular piece. These are actually real stories, by the way. The other student was using it first. Mark grabs the piece from the other student and sticks out his tongue at them. The probable function of his behavior is tangible, okay? Does everybody think that? Yes, no, maybe so? Yeah, in this particular case, Mark wanted the Legos. And now, could the sticking of his tongue out been sort of an attention piece? Maybe, and that's where we look at things over time. But for this particular snapshot, yeah, he wanted that Lego. Okay, during discussion of the schedule, Daniel calls out, "I don't like that sport. I'm not going to play it." Staff tell Daniel to remember to raise his hand and that he needs to try the sport. Daniel replies, "I'm not gonna, and you're not gonna make me." Staff reply, "We can talk about this later." Daniel shouts, "I'll talk about it whenever I feel like it." Staff ignores Daniel's outburst and continues the discussion. Daniel continues to call out for another 5 minutes and then stops. The probable function of his behavior is attention. Yeah, Daniel was one of the most attention-seeking kids I ever worked with. And here's that thing I was telling you about where it might initially get worse. He continued for 5 more minutes, but then he stopped because he wasn't getting reinforced. And that's going to be our next kind of behavior principle is reinforcement. But it no longer was working for him, so he stopped doing it. And that's where we're going to kind of talk about some of that stuff a little bit later as well. Class is lining to go up to the sports activity. Justin says he needs to go to the bathroom. An aide takes him to the bathroom, and then Justin says he doesn't feel well and needs to see the nurse because of his eye hurting. The aide takes him to the nurse, who puts eye drops in his eyes and says he is fine to go back to class. The aide begins to walk Justin towards the gym. Justin begins crying and says, "I can't go." He sits down on the floor outside the gym and cries. The probable function of his behavior is escape. He was trying to escape going to gym in the first place. He wasn't a sports fan. So just something to think about. Think about your child, your student, what happens right before or right after. And then think about why is that behavior occurring. Those are the things that you're going to want to be thinking about when it comes to kind of the initial phase of addressing problem behaviors. Other things just to think about, and you kind of hit on some of this earlier where you were talking about other things that might be going on. Is the person really tired? Is the person ill? If you think about it, if you're really tired, if you're not feeling well, your behavior is, you're more likely to have a problem behavior, whether it be at work, whether it be with a significant other, you know, if you're not in a good mood, if you haven't eaten, that's another one. And some of these things, they're just biological. Like, you need to eat at regular intervals. And you'll see that too, some of your students, now you guys have the little ones, although I guess they go through growth spurts too, you know, where all of a sudden they're just eating and eating and eating, and they may need that. And you may want to have them eating and let them kind of do that. Temperature sometimes can be an issue. I don't know about you, but I don't like being too hot. I don't like being too cold, but I'd rather be cold than hot. Noise, I'm not a fan of lots of noise. The gym today, lots of basketball squeaking and everything, and I'm like, okay, it's not as bad as the cafeteria. So these are things too that you might find, you know, if you've ever been in a noisy, crowded restaurant and you find yourself starting to get irritated, you know, these are things just to be aware of. They can affect behavior and make a behavior more likely. What you're gonna do is you're gonna look at kind of what do you think might be affecting the behavior, what's happening before, and then kind of that what's happening after. And then we're gonna look at what can you do instead. So we're gonna talk about replacement behaviors at the very end, and we're gonna talk about reinforcement kind of next. And basically you're just gonna look at prevention, you're gonna look at teaching some new skills so the behavior is no longer efficient as a means of getting what they want, and you wanna look at consequences as a way to make it ineffective. This is just an example where if there's a difficult AM or there's trouble sleeping, you know, if this particular student, when they were asked to do a fine motor task, the problem behavior was they play in the materials, they make noise. Instead, we teach them to raise their hand and ask for help or a break. Both of them meet the same consequence, but one of them is appropriate and one of them isn't. And this is ultimately that desired behavior and kind of that desired goal for the long term. So again, this part is where, actually we get to do a fun, one of my favorite activities. Think about what is the behavior you want to see your child increase. So we're gonna look at increasing the behavior, and we're gonna look at that through reinforcement. There's a couple things to know about increasing behavior. Shaping is a critical piece of this. You have to start where they're successful. So let's say, and if you want, I just keep thinking of the feeding thing, like maybe it's they take a bite, and that's it. And that's their success. Congratulations, you have earned, you know, half an hour DVD. And then it's great, now take 2 bites. And now they're taking 2 bites, and you say, woohoo, we're successful, we're moving along. And then, okay, great, now you have to take 3 bites. And you start requiring more and more, but you start where they're successful, and you kind of successively shape that. So if your child cannot handle, let's say your issue is going to your son or daughter's swim meet, and your child really can't handle being there for 5 minutes, then 4 minutes is a success. And you go, woohoo, 4 minutes. And then you say, great, next time let's do 5. And you start to shape that behavior and you shape it up. It's the same stuff that if you think about sports is another really great example for that. If you've ever played a sport activity, you didn't start out, I'll use basketball because that's what I watched today. You didn't, and it's March Madness. You didn't start out, dribbling around, shooting, scoring, the whole thing. You started out just learning how to bounce the ball. And once you were good at bouncing the ball, then you started to move while bouncing the ball. It's that same kind of thing. And then reinforcement, which goes along with shaping, is anything that increases the likelihood that in the future the behavior will occur. So, for example, are M&Ms reinforcing? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, should have brought some of them, not for you. Popcorn. Okay. All right. Sesame Street. All right. Snickers. I've got some thumbs up, thumbs down. I gotta find something that you like. Flowers.
Well, is this for me or for my kid?
Ah, you bring up a very good point.
Because I presumed you were talking about him. All of those things will motivate me, except maybe Sesame Street.
Math is a motivation. I'm impressed that math is motivating. Math is punishment for me. That's why I'm thankful for calculators. I actually had a student who would work to do math problems, and I was just like, really? I'm like, whatever works. No, that's the critical piece of what we just did. It depends. And what's important is it has to be what is reinforcing for the person whose behavior you're trying to change. I see it all the time where you're like, oh, great. Was it you that put down put thumbs down for M&Ms? Yeah. So some people, not everybody, will go, oh, M&Ms. Everybody loves M&Ms. Kids love M&Ms. I will give you an M&M and you will, change your behavior. Not everybody loves M&Ms. If I had done a survey when you all came in, some of you may have said Starburst, no thank you. Some of you were, Starburst, please. That's what you have to consider, what is reinforcing for that particular person, not for anybody else. That is so critical. That's another thing. If you have to star something, that is one of the number one reasons that I see behavior stuff fail is because you don't have something that is reinforcing for that person. That is critical. That being said, we're going to play another game. You know how I love volunteers. So Veronica or Victor volunteer loves it. In this case, clapping is reinforcing. When people clap for him or her, and we can shape his or her behavior by clapping as he or she gets closer to doing the desired behavior. And then what's going to happen is that person's going to leave the room. So what's basically going to happen is somebody is going to be a brave, kind soul and volunteer to leave the room. And we as a group are going to pick a behavior we want them to do. So it will not be the chicken dance. I can, all right. Well, let me finish giving the instructions. And then what's going to happen is we're going to pick the behavior. You're going to come back in and we're going to clap. And when we clap faster and louder, it means you're getting closer. We're shaping your behavior. If we get softer and slower, then you're not going the right direction. All right? All right. There you go. Perfect. Okay. So we have to pick what we would like her to do. Do we want her to sit at a particular chair? Do we want her to write on the paper? Do we want her to come up to a computer and touch something? My water bottles. What do we want her to do? Touch the water bottle? Yes, no, maybe so? All right, here, I'll put one away to make it even harder. So again, we're gonna clap. You can follow my clapping, but we're going to clap louder and faster as she gets closer to doing what she's doing. And if she starts to go away, we're going to clap softer and slower. We are ready for you. All right, so let's start. You guys can help me out here. Well, you have to you have to follow the clapping. Remember, as she starts to get closer, we clap louder and softer, and when she starts to go farther away, we clap slower. So there you go. Woo! Thank you very much. Now, I did not set a timer, but I know, I'm not a good behaviorist. I probably could have. Anyway, so that took probably what, a minute, maybe 2 minutes tops, right? Did she know what we were going to do? No. And you guys were actually pretty good, at least from where I was sitting. It wasn't like you were all, doing the big stare where you just kind of stare it down. She had to kind of go, where are you shaping my behavior? Where are you reinforcing me? And she did all of that without knowing, right? That's the other thing, is sometimes to change a behavior, you don't necessarily have to cognitively know it. The behavior can still be shaped by those principles of reinforcement. And just by that kind of continual shaping and continual reinforcement when they're getting closer to doing what it is that you want them to do. And then obviously the big payout of I think we even whooped, or at least in my mind I did, when you got to that particular thing. Now, Things to keep in mind with reinforcement, this lovely little acronym, VERMI. There's no good way to say it. Value. You want to restrict access to increase value. Now, if you decide that Blue's Clues is going to be the reinforcer, guess what? Exactly, you've already got it. No Blue's Clues for the rest of the day. It's just for that particular thing or when you exhibit that behavior. We'll do that with a lot of our clients that we work in home with. A lot of times it's TV that's motivating. And we'll say, okay, you can watch other TV, but you can't watch this show until you've done blank, blank, and blank, or you've done what it is you need to do. Effort. What I earn has to be, what I earn worth what I have to do? Now, if I said to you, I would like you to lose 50 pounds and I will pay you $1, most likely you're not gonna go, woohoo, yay, $1. But if I said you could win $100,000 and go on The Biggest Loser and lose those 50 pounds, you're more likely, people are motivated to do it, maybe motivated to be on TV, but they're also I'd be motivated by the money. And that's the thing, you have to have this matching kind of law. If it's a lot of effort, you gotta give me something really good. Like for me, exercise, not my favorite thing. Watching television could do all day. So if you're gonna try to motivate me, you're gonna need to have something really good. I mean, unfortunately, I used to live by a Wawa, do you have Wawas out in this area? Yeah, I grew up in South Jersey, so. And I used to play soccer, and I would run and do the little lap and end at Wawa and have a donut and iced tea, and I was like, I don't think this is balancing, but it works for me. But it had to be that just right kind of motivation. Rate, again, not too much, not too little. That's a big thing too. If I say to you, great, I want you to do this really difficult behavior for a week, and then I will give you your favorite TV show. That might be too much. Maybe it's every day that you need to earn it. You want to find that just right rate of reinforcement. Because if I give it to you too often, you're going to be like, it's too easy. If I give it to you too little, you're going to give up. You're going to say, this isn't worth it. This isn't paying out for me. Same thing if you think about it. I don't think we're going to go into intermittent, but if you think about it, slot machines, intermittent reinforcement at its best. And if you keep putting your money in, let's say half an hour, I know, how far are we from Atlantic City? And you pull that slot machine for 30 minutes, and you make no money, you're probably gonna go, you know what, this is not paying out for me, it's not gonna work. But if every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, you're gonna keep money in for a couple hours there, you'll probably lose money in the end, but you're gonna keep going because it's just right. You get just that taste. Not too big, not too little. Again, not the whole season of Blue's Clues, it's just an episode. You don't wanna go too big, but you also don't wanna ask them to do something and not provide enough. And then the other thing kind of goes a little bit with the rate too, but you don't wanna make it too long or too short afterwards. It's really important in the beginning that the reinforcement happen right after that behavior. Even if you need to set up some sort of system that is a system within a system, like a token economy where you can earn a picture of Blue's Clues, and then when you get 5 of them, then you'll get that. Because sometimes it's hard, you're out in the community, you're running around doing errands. But that's what I was saying, my sister's in her 20s and I still use M&Ms. Now, she doesn't earn M&Ms every 5 seconds, thank God. But when we're out walking in the mall and she's doing what she needs to be doing, she gets very easily distracted. She's learned to shop, and it's dangerous. And so what I'll be doing is we'll be walking together, and I'll be like, you're doing such a great job walking with me here, you want one? And she'll take one. And I'll be honest, I eat M&Ms throughout the week too, so it's an okay thing to kind of consider. And again, it's what works for her. She also would work for ice cream, but that's hard to carry in your purse. That's actually her favorite. So we just talked about edible reinforcers. It could also be tangible, things that you get to have, things you get to possess. For some kids, maybe it's stickers, maybe it's comic books. Think about those particular things, particular toys. It could be an activity, especially if the behavior, let's say, is attention. Maybe what they earn is gonna give them attention. Maybe it's a quick 2-minute game with mommy or daddy. Social things, again, it could be getting to play with other kids, getting to play and do other things. It could be, even with your younger kids, tickles, those types of social interactions might be things that would work for them. Privileges, a lot of times you'll hear about in school, you get to be line leader, or you get to be, at home maybe you get to be chore master or pick who gets assigned what chore that week, And you can get really into this. I mean, the more, for a lot of kids, if you make a big deal about it, they buy into that hype and excitement. Generalize things. Those are like tokens, points, credits. It could be if you say to them, you know what, let's see if you can get 5 points today. Like, oh my gosh, I bet you can do that. And it's easy enough. You could have it on an index card. You could have it as something that's laminated and you just write on it and, erase, or any of those different things. It could be something sensory. Maybe they get to go jump on the trampoline. Maybe they get to go for a walk and kind of just, feel the wind in their hair. Consider the age and interests. We talked about that. We talked about behavior to change. You've so very nicely highlighted, ask the person if you can, find out what they want. I can't tell you the number of times behavior plans have been created and people are like, ooh, they really want a homework pass. No, I would totally want that homework pass. We just had a meeting for a middle school student and everybody's like, oh, do you want to get a pass to go to the front of the line for lunch? And I'm like, yes, I would love that. How would you not like that? And he was like, no, not really. We're like, okay. Well, and again, what do you want? What's going to work for you? Of course, part of his plan includes lunch detention if he doesn't do what he needs to do. And he was like, can I get a lunch detention pass? We're like, no, it doesn't work like that, but good try. He's a smart kid. Consider novelty or keeping things varied or new. If you know that they like Legos is a great example. If you know that they like Legos, there is every kind of Legos in the world. I mean, go to NJEA convention and you will see they have Legos for like science kits and, so maybe they like Legos, but change it up. Maybe it's going to be Star Wars Legos this week, and maybe next week it's going to be this kind. Try to keep it varied if you can, or figure out what is it about that reinforcer that works. Is it that, in this particular student's case that we talked, just the lunch detention friend, he didn't want to go to the front of the line because he didn't want to be different. That's his thing. He doesn't want to stand out and be different to his middle school peers. Other friends of his wouldn't care. They'd be like, lunch, head of the line, that sounds like a great plan. So figure out what it is that makes them tick. Now, setting limits so that you don't have to yell. You want to make sure you're simple, clear, and concise. How many people have heard Charlie Brown's Teacher? With a wah, 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 wah. If you're saying, I really want you to listen to me, why aren't you understanding right now? I needed you to get over there and get in line. Let's go. Hello, we got to get out the door. They have not heard you. But if you say, hopefully, if you say, I can't promise, but if you say, and pair with reinforcement, it's time to go, stand up, go to the door. It's much more effective, short, simple, concise. If you want to do, and depending upon your learner, depending upon your student, use hand gestures. If you need to use pictures, use pictures. Nothing wrong with that. I don't have it in this presentation, but I'm a big fan. I call it Post-it note magic. I carry Post-it notes and various markers in my purse, and I use it on the job. So I'm out of school, the kid's freaking out. I'm like, okay, what do we got to do? Here's my Post-it note. Here's my best drawing. Here's the word. Let's go. You can do that with your student or with your child if you're out and about in the community and something comes up and you're like, how do I explain this? How do I get them to understand? Simple, clear, and concise. Be reasonable. Offer flexibility. Think about it. If you've ever gotten into an argument, let's just say, and you get backed into that corner and you feel like there's no way out, do you go, okay, I'm going to back down? Or do you fight back? It's the same way with our kids. Give them an opportunity to save face. Give them a way out. Give them another choice. It doesn't have to be, the entire day is blown now because of this particular thing. And when it does happen too, and this, was it you that was saying the threatening with life, or was it you? I can't, okay. Enforceable, because here's what happens. If every day I tell you, you know what, that's it, you are never going to, you are never going to grandma's again, ever, ever, ever. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, really? I'm going to grandma's tomorrow because she's babysitting. Try to think about what's enforceable. Plan ahead. Think about what are some appropriate limits to set. Set yourself up. Do that behavior planning in advance to where you're like, all right, you know what? We're not gonna do this in the moment stuff. I'm gonna figure out your reinforcer. I'm gonna figure out ways to prevent it. And oh yeah, by the way, if it does happen, here's what's gonna happen. And you already know in advance, this is the thing, you have it down. And sometimes, I'll be honest, I need visual cues too. And sometimes it helps me. I forget what I was thinking about earlier today, but it had to do with like, I need my own prompt to sometimes remind me, oh, when you get upset. I was like, oh, I need a prompt to remind me, like, oh, what are my options when I get upset? Okay, what are good choices? Don't go for the food, don't go to Dunkin'. So you want to think about in advance, what can you do? What's going to be enforceable for you? And you know what? Here's the big thing. And I'm doing it right now. It's okay to take a time out as a parent. It's okay to take a time out and go, you know what? Hold on a second. I'm going to go take a breath over here. So when I come back, I'm going to pull myself together. And as I was telling Tiffany earlier, I don't know if I actually mentioned this one, but with my sister, were there times that I was like ready to kill her? I was telling her a story actually. I blew out an Easter egg, and I was very impressed with this. And this was in my 20s, so it's not even like it was that long ago. But, and she took it the next morning. She wanted ice cream, as always, 9:30. And I'm like, you had breakfast, no ice cream. And she took it, she looked at me, and she went, and I was like, I'm gonna kill you. And I was like, I'm so impressed that you noted that this was important to me, but I'm still gonna kill you, And I've had to take, and even when working with, in a professional capacity, I've had to take timeouts. I've had to say, okay. I mean, I had to break my glasses once, and it was a Sunday at 6 o'clock. And why is that important? Those of you that shop, the store's all closed. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I have to go home and get these bad glasses. And I did. I just said and thankfully I was, teaming with another person, so there was another person there, and I was just like, I'll be back. But it's okay. You're allowed to say, you know what? Even if you're kicking, screaming over here, I'm going to take 30 seconds over here, regroup, take a breath, come back, and then deal with this. Because part of this too is you're the one that's going to change the behavior. You're going to help your student, you're going to help your kid change that behavior, but you're the one that's going to do it. So it's up to you. So you got to take care of you. And you got to have your relaxation strategies. So go home, tell your significant other that I said massages are part of the behavior plan. They're gonna be like, you're never going to another one of these again. Best to lead with a positive choice. Start out with, what happens a lot of times when you get a choice, you take the first one that's offered sometimes. So you want to start out with that positive one before they get all ready to say, well, oh, you wanted that one? Okay, I'll do that one. Be cautious with timing. Sometimes, and again, whole nother workshop, but people have to breathe. And sometimes when they're like, blah, 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 don't try to set that limit. Don't try to step in there when they're, blah, 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 wait for them to take a breath. They have to do it. And then, oh, you're taking a breath now. By the way, would you like to consider this option? And then if you can, use motivators. It's always helpful to remind people what they're working for, what they're looking to do. And again, think about what's important to them. If you say, but then if you do this, you're going to go to grandma's, and they happen to not like going to grandma's, probably not the thing to say. Because they're like, well, then I'm definitely going to do whatever I'm not supposed to do. So again, we didn't really go into kind of punishment too much. We went into setting limits, but think about reinforcement. What can you do for your particular child to find things that are motivating for them, that are reinforcing? How can you deliver it? All those different variables. Now, I know you were wondering what that very fun last activity was. We are going to go on a picnic, or at least I am. And I would love for you to come, but you have to bring something. It's like a potluck. So I am gonna bring, one of my favorite fruits is apples. I'm gonna bring apples. So what are you gonna bring?
I'll bring sandwiches.
Can't come. What are you gonna bring?
Beer.
Yes, you can come. Good choice. What are you gonna bring?
I'm going to bring watermelon.
I like watermelon, but no, you can't come. What are you gonna bring, Tiffany?
Pineapple.
Pineapple? No, you can't come. Absolutely not. Pineapple. Do you know how hard that is to cut? All right, so we got apples, we have beer. What else?
I'm going to bring, how about if I bring a cheesecake?
Ooh, from the Cheesecake Factory? All right, you can come.
I thought I could see this.
Oh, I gave it all away. You know what my reinforcers are. I do like watermelon, but what are you gonna bring?
Cheese.
Nope, can't come. Gosh, come on. What are you going to bring? Don't you want to come to donuts? High five. Donuts it is. Donuts are coming. What are you going to bring?
Ribs.
Ribs. No ribs. Do you know how messy those are? All right, so we got apples, beer, cheesecake, donuts.
Eggs, possibly?
Eggs are good. Hard-boiled, preferably. What did you say? In a salad, an egg salad, yeah. What are you gonna bring, Tiffany? French fries, nice. I prefer, I can't remember who my favorite French fry person is right now. It might be Wendy's. What are you gonna bring?
Fried chicken.
Cannot come, even though I do like fried chicken. All right, so we got apples, beer, cheesecake, donuts, very good choice, eggs, French fries. Any idea what you might want to bring?
What about a karaoke machine?
A karaoke machine would be fun. I would enjoy, but no. All right, how many people know what they're going to bring and think that they have kind of figured out what it is you got to do? Okay? All right, so I'll review one more time, and I'll throw in one more, and we'll see. Apples, beer, cheesecake, donuts, eggs, French fries.
Cheese.
Goldfish crackers.
Goldfish crackers, no cheese. Some of you are not going on my picnic. The point of this is A, B, C, D, E, F, goldfish crackers, H. So it was all, the rule for you being able to come on my picnic was you had to say a word within the next alphabetical order. So watermelon would have been fine had we gotten that far.
Once I thought about her beer, I was like, she got to go with beer. Why did she get to go?
Now, how did you? Now, did you just guess the donuts?
I just guessed
That was good. That was a good guess. Did you guess beer the first time, or?
I just guessed beer as a joke, but then when you said yes, I'm like, wait a minute.
You're like,
And
wait
then when
for
she
it?
said cheesecake, I'm like, she totally got it. But then when I wasn't sure you had donuts, I thought you were going with the Dunkin' thing.
Either way, it would have worked, Dunkin' or donut. So how did you feel, for those of you that didn't get it, how did you feel? Other people were getting to go, and you weren't. You felt stupid, okay? Yeah, maybe, and especially, you know, you guys have all been such great sports tonight. You know, and I'm coming over and I'm picking on you guys and you're just totally letting me. But that's sometimes what happens is you're trying to figure out what is going on. What's the rule here? I don't understand. And that's what it can be like for some of our kids, some of our students. They don't get it. They're not picking it up naturally. A lot of our students don't naturally just come up with the social skills, with the rules, with the replacement behaviors that they need to be doing. So we have to teach them, because otherwise they sit there and they go, I don't get it. And eventually what happens? If we were going on a real picnic and I kept going, no, try again, no, keep going, no. If we kept going longer and longer, what probably would have happened? People would have given up. They'd have been like, forget it, I don't want to go to your stupid picnic. I've had people say that actually. I don't want to go to your stupid picnic, I'll have my own picnic. I've actually had people say that in workshops. Yeah, so the point of this is again, you want to make it explicit. You need to teach it. There's no danger in teaching it. It's not going to harm anyone. So if they happen to know it already, woohoo! But if not, you're helping them understand what the heck is going on, especially your younger guys and gals. It's just not natural. They're not picking up on it. So sometimes you have to tell them. The way that you're going to do that is you're going to define it, you're going to model it, you're going to role play it, and you're going to give them feedback on it. This is particular, let's say even you're trying to teach that behavior, you want them to walk into the swim meet, sit down on the bench, and play quietly with their comic book. So you know what you're going to do? Okay, what's the, how are we going to practice this? What's the skill? The skill is walk into the room, sit down on the bench, look at the comic book. It sounds like a lot, but sometimes you need to have it broken down, because if you don't, I can guarantee you there's 2 to 3 right ways to do something, but there's probably a million wrong ways. you know, whether it's running in and, you know, sliding down the bleachers or any of those different things. You're going to model it. You're going to show them what it looks like, what it doesn't look like. You're going to have them practice, role play. So if, again, there's a particular behavior, you want to see them practice the appropriate means of doing it, that's what you do. With a student that we went through today, practicing filling out his behavior form, because he's doing a self-monitoring thing where he rates himself and the teacher matches, and it's a longer story, but we practiced. Okay, what happens if you get a bad score? What are you going to do? Are you going to be like, oh, you know, and really kind of role play, what's that going to look like? What is taking a break, you know, if you get overwhelmed at, you know, the places with like the ball pits and stuff like that. If you get really overwhelmed, rather than hitting, you know, the nearest person, you know, let's practice saying, Mommy, I need a break, you know, and, you know, going over and doing that and having them practice it and telling them, great job with the way you're doing it. Another way to kind of think about it, a 3D approach: discuss, demonstrate, and do. So you discuss it with them, you demonstrate it, and you have them do it. So again, think of what you do with this. The fancy term is a task analysis, but it's basically you're going to take that skill, you're going to break it down into those steps that you're looking to see happen, and then you're going to teach each of those skills. And then generalizing across settings, staff, and materials. And what that means is, let's say the skill you're trying to teach them is how to take a break when they're feeling overwhelmed rather than throwing themselves on the floor. You know, that's something you want them to use everywhere, I hope. So you're going to practice, okay, let's do this in the living room. Let's do this over at grandma's. Let's do this, you know, let's practice this out at Target. All the different places, so that they get that opportunity to kind of really get the practice and really get the opportunity to make sure that they're doing it everywhere. Some things you're only going to need them to do in a particular place or a particular area, and that's okay. A really, really great book, if you want to make things slightly easier, called Skill Streaming. There's an early childhood one, there is a elementary school one, there's an adolescent one. And basically, actually the two task analysis I'm going to show you are from that book. So all you have to do is go to the book and say, all right, what are some of the skills we need to work on? Oh, there's that one. Open the page, it's right there. And I'm not sure if all the skill streaming ones, not their basic kind of book, probably doesn't have pictures, but you can take it and you can make your own pictures if you're good with clip art. That's what I end up doing, honestly, for a lot of students I'll work with, is we'll make our own kind of, throw some clip art in. If you really want to go nuts, take pictures of your kid doing the stuff and put it in there, and then it's like, I mean, who doesn't like looking at themselves? Or if you really, well, okay, I'm getting too technological, but you could do video too, but that's if you really want to go nuts. So following directions, listen carefully to the instructions, ask questions about anything you don't understand, repeat the instructions to yourself or the person, and follow the instructions. Now, this is more for, like, let's say you want them to remember from the kitchen to the bedroom what it is they need to go, you know, get or do those types of things. And you just kind of model, okay, listen carefully. And you can do, a lot of times as teachers, we call it like a talk aloud. So it's like you're kind of voicing your internal dialogue. So it's like, okay, you know, what's your name?
Tony.
Tony, nice to meet you. All right, Tony just told me to take his credit card and go to Dunkin' Donuts. Okay. Tony, which credit card do you want me to take?
Visa.
The Visa, okay. I'll be sure to remember that. Okay. Take the Visa, go to the Dunkin' Donuts. Oh, where's the nearest Dunkin' Donuts?
35 on about a mile down.
Okay. Take the Visa, go to Dunkin' Donuts, 35 near something. Okay. And again, even if I did that and I kind of made an error because I didn't remember the last part. So I might go, wait, okay, oh, I totally forgot one of the directions. What was that again? You know, and you're modeling, you're role playing, and it's okay. I used to do this with my students and I make a game of it. I'd say, ooh, catch Miss Umstead doing the wrong one. Like, what did I forget, guys? Like, ooh. And and I did this with middle schoolers and they still really liked it. And it became like a game, you know, and then I had them practice it. And, you know, in this case, I'm not going to actually follow the instructions. I might get in trouble with Tiffany. So, So you would just then have them, you demonstrate, and then again, you might demonstrate them doing it wrong, like, listen carefully for the instructions and then you just walk away. And sometimes that's okay. Another one, this is how we used to teach. If you have any students who have issues with personal space, shall we say, this is one of the ones I learned at Eden. And this is literally what you taught some of the kids. And you could see this, I will be honest, like sometimes you could actually see this because this is what would happen. Hi, Tony. You would like see them go through all the steps. But the point was, with the personal space, is if you use an arm's length away, generally speaking, you always have an arm, you always know how far away that is. Now with your little ones, that might still be too close with little hands, but you get the idea. Give them a ruler. I can just imagine that now. Same thing, you're breaking it down. What do you need to do? You walk towards them, you stop, and again, I would do this with my students, and I would be like, oh, if I just stayed here, and poor Tony would be like very uncomfortable probably, and I missed one of them. What did I miss? What did I do differently? Okay, Tony, you practice. All right, Tony, it's your turn.
Okay. Want to get out and do it?
Yeah, walk towards me, stop one arm's length away.
Person's here. Say hi.
Hi, Tony. Tony, I loved how you walked towards me. You stopped an arm's length away. You even stuck your hand out. You looked at my face. That was really great. And I loved how at the end you remembered, you looked and you figured out, I have to say hi. And even honestly, it's just that repetitive thing. Now, granted, I probably talked too fast, but if I was working with one of my little guys, I probably, by repeating that, do you think it's going to help them start to internalize it? I mean, it's the same thing. If you think about when you were first learning, way back when, how to use a computer, you kind of started to do that. Click on the mouse, click on this thing, type in this web address, click on this mouse, click on this thing, type in this web address. And then you started to internalize it. It's the same thing. And the other thing that you're doing by role playing is you're creating body memory. You're kind of creating this kind of like, oh yeah, I've got practice doing this. It becomes more natural. It's your go-to when you've done it over and over and over again.
You're also like hitting the auditory and the visual from hearing it and seeing it.
Absolutely. And what was great is, like you're pointing out, like we had that up there. So when Tony was kind of, and I was like, he was able to, and he followed my just nonverbal cue and looked at what it was he needed to do. He did a fantastic job. Good job, Tony. And if Tony, and if I had something that was reinforcing for Tony, I would have given it to him right there. In this case, we're going to assume that verbal praise was reinforcing. Again, show the correct way, show the incorrect way. Did it talk aloud? Practicing. And again, with the realism, you can go nuts, at home, even, pretending to make shopping. I've had students have Target issues for whatever reason. And so we'll set up fake shopping aisles, we'll take the blocks and, those giant ones that are cardboard. Try to be as realistic as possible as you can. There's also some great, depending on what your need is, there's some great DVDs that are out there too that are video modeling or kind of showing you what the steps are that you should be doing. They're general, but they can also be really good. Or, like I said, if you want to go technologically wild, you can create your own videos too. It takes some time to do it. Another thing too, and I didn't mention this earlier, and I should have, is that if you're doing something behaviorally that you're working on your child with at home, tell your teacher about it. Tell your school about it if you can, if you feel comfortable doing that, because then they can reinforce that too. If you're working on them learning to, say, I need a break right now, rather than throwing themselves down, it's a good skill for the teacher to prompt them and practice with them at school as well. And to give feedback with them. Or again, talk to grandma. Email is great. You can send the whole family an email. This is what we're doing. Please follow it. Behavior-specific praise. When Tony did his lovely handshaking, again, I specifically told him what he did right because I wanted to kind of be very specific. I didn't want him to think that there was something he did that was, okay. Sometimes, for example, if I were to go, oh my God, great job, Tony. Tony could right now be thinking like, oh, this is the most boring thing ever. and I'm telling him great job for thinking something's boring. But if I say to him, Tony, that's a really great job sitting there and giving me eye contact and looking interested, he knows exactly what it is that I am giving him the praise reinforcement for. If I don't do that, sometimes, not always, you might inadvertently reinforce the wrong thing. Providing it as soon as possible, and again, personally meaningful goes back to that, making sure the reinforcer relates to that person. Coaching and cueing, this is again, if you know that you're going to go into a situation that might have some issues, this is that time where, just like a coach would do right before a game, okay, we're going to the target, guys. What's our game plan? What are we going to do? We're going to remember to, stay with mommy. We're going to remember to keep our hands to ourselves and, not take everything off the shelf. Tell them what it is that they need to be doing. The other thing that you can do with some kids, and especially as kids get older, I find that depending upon who the kid is and how you know them, social autopsies, and you can make it into this whole big, if they're into CSI and stuff like that, like, ooh, we're going to break it down just like a science thing and just like on TV. But take what happened and afterwards, discuss it. Just like, again, with a coach, with a game. After the game, the coach doesn't go, okay, great, see you guys later. They go, okay, great, that was a really great job. I played soccer. So that was a really great job passing. We really need to work more on remembering to, shoot the ball towards the goal and not towards our own goal. I also played goalie and was scored on by my team. Loved playing soccer. So you want to make sure to take time, too, to break it down afterwards and see how things went. Now, the final things that you need to kind of bring it all together. I'm going to give you a pop quiz now. We'll see how well the candy has worked in keeping you up. Can somebody name for me one function of behavior that we talked about? Attention, okay. How about another one? Sensory, okay. Tangible. Avoidance or escape, absolutely. So those are our 4 main functions of behavior, right? So when you see a behavior, a problem behavior, what are you going to think? Which one is it? Why? What's going on? Exactly. Very good. Reinforcement, we talked about. And reinforcement is when you increase a behavior. And who does the reinforcer have to matter to? The person being reinforced. I've done my job, I can go. And we want to look at, for social skills, we talked about kind of what can you teach, how can you teach them, and then we put it all together. Based on the function of the behavior, what are some things you can do, our fancy word of antecedent, going all the way back to a little while ago, where we talked about what happens before a behavior and what happens after, and we talked about a little bit about the teaching piece. So the antecedent, what happens before, what can we do to prevent? So if, these are just some suggestions, these are by no means exhaustive. If you think your child's behavior is occurring because of attention, provide attention for the appropriate behavior. Sometimes this is great if you have siblings or your child has siblings. You might go, Tony, I really love how you are staying with mommy right now. Awesome job. Now, mind you, I did give you a little bit of attention because I looked at you. But if I'm just assuming, like you were the acting out child. So again, I'm providing attention to someone else. And you'll see sometimes kids go, wait a minute, well, why are they getting that attention or getting that type of thing? Or honestly, I've done this with other adults even, to where, again, I'm going to, for the sake of you being such a good sport tonight, I'm going to pretend you're acting out again. And it might be Tony and I, or now your parents, it might be like, oh, yeah, so Tony, what'd you do today? That was really great. Oh my gosh, did you see that computer game that I was playing? Yeah, it was awesome. And just by even kind of turning your body a little bit, or just kind of even talking to somebody else around you, can sometimes be that, like, I'm not getting the attention for this. Like what I said before with the kid today that was acting out in the gym, and I said to the staff, because this is what happened. He's kicking and stomping over here, and the paraprofessional and the gym teacher have now left the entire gym class. I mean, they're still in the gym, but they've gone over to this kid, and I'm like, and I don't know that this is the case, this was my first day observing him, but he just got two adults to come over and go, it's gonna be okay, don't worry about it, don't you worry, it's gonna be fine, come on, let's go, it'll be okay, don't you worry. And the funny part is the minute that they say to him, okay, if you don't do this, then you're just not gonna get to play the game. Snaps right out of it, pops right back into the gym class. And I'm like, this is something to investigate further. But again, that's why I asked, is it, if you start paying attention to other kids, is his behavior gonna change? Sometimes it's also allowing them to work in, with other kids, with their siblings, with you at the table. Maybe doing their homework by themselves at the table is not so fun. Maybe you have a laptop. You take your work to the table with your laptop, they sit at the table with their homework, and you do it together. You've got some sort of kind of attention for when they're doing what they need to be doing. I've even done it where, let's say they have to clean up their toys in their room, and if you're able to, you've got tons of stuff going on, but if you're able to, you go in the room and you read your favorite novel while they're cleaning up their toys. So they've got, as long as you're doing what you need to be do, I'll give you some attention, or I'll talk to you, or we'll do what we need to do. The minute you stop doing that, not gonna happen. And you're preventing them from doing stuff to want to get attention because they've already gotten it. They become what we call satiated on it. They're like, okay, just, wait till they get older. They'll be like, just leave me alone. You start to get sick of it. Sick of it's not a good word. That's not very behavioral. Satiation, better word. Escape. Make sure that what you're asking them to do is at their level, okay? Sometimes we may ask them to do something that maybe they're not there yet. When we look at it in terms of teaching, we talk about, I like the word just right level, but we also use the word instructional level. You've got the, kind of too advanced, and then you've got the kind of below your level, too easy. You want to find that just right spot. And you want to make sure that maybe what you're asking them to do is too much. I'm not saying that it is, because sometimes it's not the case, but consider it. Structure the activity and include a break. I don't know about you, but for me, I'm actually not a big shopping fan. And if I have to go shopping for clothes, I need to structure breaks in. So I might say, okay, we'll go to this store, have lunch, then go back. And I put it in my day because otherwise I'm gonna be miserable by the end of that trip, and I'll structure in so that I'm successful, so that I don't try to escape. Another, and even more March, April related, taxes. I hate dealing with taxes. So do I sit there and do taxes for 4 hours? No. I deal with it for an hour, I take a break. And in fact, honestly, I work kind of independently, so I set my own schedule in that regard. And I structure breaks into minute all the time. Even if it's a 15-minute break, and even if you look at corporate America and that kind of stuff, sometimes just taking that 10-minute break, and then I can go back and do stuff. I can sit at my computer and type straight for about 45 minutes to an hour. Then I need to take a break. I need to go do something, walk around the house, get a drink of water, come back. But I structure it. I have timers. I love timers. I have timers that I have going off, to tell me, okay, break time is over, it's time to go back to work. And I've practiced, so the timer goes off and I go back to the office. Sensory breaks. If it's a sensory thing, this isn't exactly how I do it. I've done some work internationally, and I tend to pick tropical countries for some reason. And I was in Indonesia last April, and thank the Lord, where we happened to be at, we were really fortunate. And while it was so hot during the day, and we were going to schools and helping, actually in an area that had been affected by the tsunami in 2005, we were helping do some long-term educational planning. And but our hotel room had the best air conditioning in the world. And I don't know how I would have done by day 5 if I didn't have that sensory break to be able to have that because we talked about temperature, because it was so hot. So again, that sensory piece, sometimes I do this, I can't do it during an observation, but if I could, if I'm observing in a cafeteria, I might go, you know what, okay, all right, I've been here 20 minutes. I'm gonna go take a step outside for 5 minutes, kind of let my, sensory system come back down. Or better example, more adult example, wedding reception. with the noise and all the music and everything, I'll go out and take breaks and come back in because it's just the sensory piece. And I put that in there so that, again, by the end of the night, I'm not on edge. Allow students to receive input in other ways. If some kids like the way that, heavy things feel on them, then maybe I'm gonna let them dress in layers. Maybe I'm gonna give, we had some kids, honestly, wetsuits, would wear a wetsuit underneath their clothing. I'm not saying that it's what I would do, but it worked for some of our kids. They would wear a little wetsuit or even those little kind of, I forget what they call them. It's like the short kind of tank. Yeah. That they would just wear underneath their clothes. Allow the students headphones or earplugs for noise if that's a particular issue. Allow them to work towards that tangible object. So instead of the tantrum at the grocery checkout aisle at Target, you say, okay, so what are our goals again? Remember, we coached outside. We're gonna remember to keep our hands to ourselves. We're gonna stay with mommy. And if we can manage to do that, you can pick one, piece of candy when we check out. And even if you want to, that Post-it note magic, take the little Post-it note, put a piece of candy on it, or do that particular thing. And so they know, okay, I'm working for that. Sometimes too, it helps, again, that satiation, let them play with that particular thing and then say, okay, now it's time to do some work. It doesn't work for all kids. Some kids, it's just gonna create a disaster. But allow them some time with it so they have that, they decrease their need for it. They've had some time, and then you go back. And then they can kind of earn time with that again. If the behavior does occur, because it'll happen, it's gonna happen. I was telling Tiffany earlier, having a sister with a disability, with autism, with cognitive disabilities, I wish I could say that every single time I take my sister and do something that she is just the most perfectly behaved kid well, she's not a kid anymore, perfectly behaved adult in the world. Stuff happens. I can plan. I was telling Tiffany my plan for eating out. My sister really likes food, like I said, so I'm prepared. I got a snack in case the appetizer doesn't get there quick enough. Then we've got, right after the appetizer, we've got the entree. Right after that, we got dessert. We've got this planned. If I need to do a schedule, we will do the schedule. But sometimes she'll still be, something will happen. She'll see another food she wants, whatever. Sometimes it does happen. So what do you do when it does happen? Well, I was also telling Tiffany, my sister responds better to me now. And actually better, she responds better to me now since I started kind of doing the behavior stuff, because now, we were shopping at Dollar Tree and she wanted something and I was like, she wanted to go back to the store again. I was like, not happening. And that sometimes is a trigger for her, the word no. And she threw her little basket on the floor and I was like, okay, we're leaving. She was not happy. But had I said to her, okay, let's pick up the stuff, we'll go, we'll check out. No, we're done. End of story. And sometimes you have to do that. So you have to be prepared. If, in my sister's case, it was tangible. So did I let her have the tangible thing? No, that wasn't the game plan. Next time, could she certainly get it? Yeah. Did I, get upset at her and, spend the rest of the ride back to the group home, in silence? No, I was just like, okay, that's just the way it is. We're gonna, let's just keep on moving with our day. I took my moment to breathe and away we went. And I've also become desensitized to a lot of stuff too, but planned ignoring. So you might plan, and I've done this too, you talk to your other kids, talk to your spouse, talk to grandma, and say, you know what, when so-and-so does this, we're gonna turn our back. I mean, I don't mean that it can become comical, but if you do the whole like turn your back kind of thing, like it's sometimes they're just like, what is going on? I am not getting this attention, I don't get it. Minimal attention. Sometimes you do have to provide correction. There's a book called Magic 1, 2, 3. I mean, it's basically 1, 2, 3. You can use cards. I've done that, especially, like I said, I played soccer. So in soccer, you get red cards, yellow cards. Do you already know that? So sometimes I've done that with kids. I'll create warning cards, and maybe it's just a color. I've used the stoplight system. If their teacher is using a stoplight system, I've done the same thing. Okay, you want to use green, you want to use yellow, you want to use red? Bam, no problem. You can use timeout. Timeout is appropriate when it's attention seeking. If the child is trying to escape, timeout is not necessarily appropriate because what are they getting when they get the timeout? They're escaping. I've had some kids that are like, that's awesome, let's keep doing it. You know, and that's the thing to be aware of. That's the hard part in that moment, because you feel like, well, this is something that's really important to me or really important right now, and so you should want to be here. And they might be like, not really. And so if you don't think about that function, escape, taking away, if the behavior is motivated by escape, taking away time from a preferred task might be something. Maybe you're not going to say, you know what, that's it. No computer time for you. But maybe you're going to say, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. You know, and you're not taking it all away. They still got a shot, but they better change. Physical prompting. That might be where you're kind of guiding them along to where they need to be going. Or, you know, I've had to do that with my sister where it's like, okay, we're going to take hands now and we're just going to walk. We're going to keep walking. And thankfully, generally, she will respond to that. But if they're trying to escape from a particular thing, a particular whatever in that moment, you may need to consider whether you want to do some sort of physical prompting. Skill prompting. Maybe if escape is the motivation, prompt them to take a break. You know, it seems like you really don't want to do this. Would you like to take a break right now? You're prompting them to use an appropriate behavior. Because let's face it, most of us as adults know how to take breaks appropriately. Like, for example, if you were really just like, oh my gosh, it's just so much. I cannot, you know, this library is really hot. You know what? I'm going to go take a bathroom break and come back. Or I'm just going to go in the hallway and come back. You know how to do that. Our kids don't, a lot of times. So we're going to teach that, and we're going to prompt that. We're going to prompt them in that moment. You have a choice here. You can say, I need a break. Doesn't mean you're going to get a break for 5 hours, but you know, maybe that's what you build into it. Would you rather have them take a 1-minute break or 5 minutes on the floor? It's a choice. And sometimes it is. You need to do what you got to do. Sensory, redirect appropriate ways of getting input. Again, if I have a student who's a rocker, I have flappers too, but if I have a student who likes to do this, I'm going to try to find a way for them to get that input without standing and doing that. So maybe it is I have a rocking chair. Or maybe it is, you know, I show them that, you know, you rock a little bit in your chair, you know, whether it's just kind of like, you know, I'm not, you know what I mean? And video game rocking chairs are great for that. I used to have one when I worked full-time for a district. I used to have one in my office. I was very popular with that chair. Coach alternative strategies. Sometimes you can't give them an alternative to that behavior. So what's an alternative strategy that you can have them do that maybe is incompatible? So if you have somebody who, you know, maybe you can't figure out a way to kind of deal with this or everything you've done, maybe the alternative strategy is prompting them to fold their hands together. Or to, you know, we have a student who, he'll do this, and what he's learned to do, and honestly it's so subtle, but he just basically, he has his hand on the side and sometimes he'll tap his leg. Honestly, I would never notice that. If I didn't know that we taught him that, I would not have noticed it. Tangible, object is withheld or taken away for a period of time. Or maybe it's not, you know, it's not that you lose all the toys in your room, but Barney's gone. Okay, what, you know, and you have the other things to play with, but you don't have Barney or you don't have that particular thing. Or Mark's case, Legos. Okay, Legos are no longer a choice for you during, you know, this particular break time. These are your other options. We'll run through this last piece and then I will let you go for the night. Skills for teaching, attention, how to request attention appropriately from staff or from parent. How many of you have kids? Tony, thank you for being such a good sport. How many of you have kids that do this? And just whack away. And you know, it's like you need to teach them, you know, yeah, and you do need to say tap once, you know, don't. And again, practice, because that one's one that they're gonna need that practice on. When is it okay to talk to your brother or talk to me? Not during the middle of a movie, in a movie theater. What do I do if someone is busy at that moment and I want attention? What can I do? Can I put a card, if mommy's talking on the phone, can I just put a card on the table and slide it to her that says, you know, I miss you, hope to see you, you know, soon. You know, come up with a different... All right, maybe that's not dramatic, but you get what I'm saying. Like, what's a signal you can give that's appropriate? That's also not going to interrupt your phone call. How to request help. Sometimes when you get just really overwhelmed, like I'll be honest, if I get really upset, a lot of times what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call a friend and ask for help. I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I just can't believe this just happened. What do I do? I'm asking for help. How to request for a break. You know, if I'm really, you know, if I'm doing something and I need to just take a break, you know, again, it may be just saying to that person, I need 1 minute. Could you give me a second? How to cope with frustration. Talked about the sensory, how to get needed input. What to do when it's too noisy. And you have some kids, at least I've worked with some kids, that when it gets too noisy, they start screaming. And I'm like, that's not really helping the situation. You know, and whether it's, again, it's too noisy, go find an adult and say, can I sit outside for a second? One school I was observing during recess, and literally for 20 minutes, all the kids outside were just screaming. And it was actually quite interesting. But thankfully, outside and wide open space. Lastly, tangible, waiting your turn, how to wait for an object. Waiting your turn is a big one, especially for those tangible things that they just want and they want it now. Accepting no, that's another one. I have a whole program actually that we've used on accepting no to kind of no, but you can have. That's kind of what it ends up being like, you know, maybe they really want the keys to the car. No, but you can have my iPhone. Is that an iPhone? No, it's a Verizon, sorry. No, but you can have my smartphone. So it's the same kind of a thing you teach. You know what, it's not the end of the world if you hear no. You know, like even with my sister, no, we can't go back through the Dollar Tree store again, but you can have one more item, or you can, you know, we can do one more kind of thing so that they learn that no does not mean the end of the world. And that, my friends, is the end of our workshop.